Okay, this presentation is on defects in synaptogenesis and autism, and this is for biology 533. Okay, so a quick overview. I'm going to talk about synaptogenesis, define it, talk a little bit about what it is, talk about mechanisms and molecules involved in synaptogenesis, as well as cell adhesion molecules, more specifically about different molecules involved, mechanisms involved in synaptic formation. Going to quickly look at neurotrophins, receptor signaling, look at some images, and talk about growth cones, and then close it out with evidence for defects in synaptogenesis and autism. Okay, so synaptogenesis. So what is it? The author of Mechanisms of Vertebrate Synaptogenesis defined synaptogenesis as a complex process by which functional synapses form between neurons. I'm going to talk a little bit about synaptogenesis and then go more in depth about the molecules, some here in further slides, but just to quickly touch on synaptogenesis. It is a process that begins during embryonic development and it continues through adulthood. It is one of the family of molecules that's important to introduce first is the CAMs, which are a cell surface adhesion molecule, and so they identify where synaptogenesis needs to take place. However, the activity between the synapses is what's going to determine if this connection is going to continue or if it's going to be eliminated. So they initially recognize and trigger the initial synaptic formation, but the CAMs don't decide what continues. They're just more, they identify and initiate it. And activity determines if that connection is going to develop. So, I guess the next question is, in producing synaptogenesis, what regulates the axons to know to make these connections and the postsynaptic partners? So they're intrinsically, many of the axons are intrinsically encoded. They have a genetic coding a program that tells it to make connections with other axons. However, there are, and this introduces the molecules, which I'll get into in further slides, like other molecules like the CAMs, that are called inducing molecules. So they intrinsically know there's a programming, but then there are the dendrites, for example, have to mature before they can actually have the coding to make these connections. So there are many on-site molecules that assist in pushing for these connections to activate the transcription factors in these particular in different axons. So there are a few different classes of molecules that do trigger synaptogenesis, and we'll look at those particular models in the next on the next slide. Okay, now we're going to talk about mechanisms and molecules. We're going to talk specifically about the target-derived synaptogenesis molecules. In the first class I have listed here the netrins, semaphorins, and ephren A. These are secreted from the molecule, or from the neuron, and they are specifically, they guide the axon to its target. There's, like I said, they're molecules that are secreted from the neuron. And the next group, looking at the image, the next group that went to fibroblast, growth factor, the FGF, these are priming factors, and they are also secreted from the target neuron as well as the glia cells that are in the immediate area, vicinity. And these priming, but as I said, the first list, they are more about molecules that are used to guide the axons to its target. In the second group, the priming factors are molecules that their role is to promote dendritic maturation, facilitation, as well as create synaptic formation. They are they can not only create and promote it, but they can also restrict synaptogenesis. Another one on the diagram here under A for cholesterol is listed. I didn't write that in my list, but cholesterol specifically is also a priming factor which helps in the development of synaptogenesis, and it binds to the TSP1 and promotes synaptic formation. Let's see. Also, another thing that was noted in the text is, or in the one of the articles, is that glia regulates the timing of synaptic formation as well, which makes sense because the timing factors are being secreted from the glia that's in the immediate area. Also, let's see, I didn't talk about BDNF, which is another priming molecule, and BDNF is regulates the density of the synaptic synapse. So that's also plays a part in as a priming factor, a priming molecule. But let's go to the next slide and we'll talk more specifically about more molecules that are involved in target-derived synaptogenesis molecules. Okay, so the cell adhesion molecules. So as I was discussing earlier, CAMs are cell adhesion molecules, and they're involved in cell-to-cell recognition, and they trigger initial synaptic formation. So just quickly, there's a couple of different CAM families. There's the cadherin, and there is, and these are the calcium-dependent molecules, and then there are the proto-cadherins, and as I mentioned earlier, they are, for their role in synaptogenesis is that they do target recognition and synaptic specificity. I don't know, it's all I can say. Specificity, but they don't play a role in synaptic formation. And as I mentioned earlier, after synaptic formation is made, it depends on the activity and whether that synapse is going to continue. But just to note that the CAMs are, their role in synaptogenesis is for target guidance, and that's what these particular molecules are role is. That they do not form the synapse. They are just more of a target. They play a role in finding the correct target for the neuron. Okay, so molecular mechanisms involved in synaptic formation. So, well, these diagrams are more based on what we've been talking about with the CAMs. And then I'm also going to introduce new molecules and what we've been talking about around that are directly involved in synaptogenesis and the formation of the synapse. Whereas the molecules that we have been talking about have been more the CAMs and talking about the target recognition and specificity. So, for example, in A is what we've been talking about, showing this is showing how the CAMs are the target recognition of the CAMs, showing connection between pre and post recognition. and B, the lesion line, showing the role that they play in the synaptogenesis. And then in C, molecules roles that are shown, such as Murex is shown here, and is stated in the information about this particular diagram that that it has a role in synaptogenesis by localizing voltage and calcium gates, and so this promotes the vesicles to be released. So these were the molecules that we had been talking about, and this is just showing, like I said, it's more like, for example, A, showing the target seeking molecules, and the target guidance and specificity, that role that they play, versus these new molecules that are being introduced. And these are, for example, two family classes are the NART molecules and the F and B molecules, and they're involved more specifically in synaptogenesis and the development of the formation of the synapse. The synapse, or the NART molecules family, was introduced in the discussion in the Waits article. And the author specifically talked about research that had been done, and how when NART molecules were overexpressed in the spinal cord, that it increased the synaptic clustering of the AMPA receptors. So it showed that there's a strong evidence showing that they have a role, that the NART molecules have a role in AMPA receptors, as well as clustering of NMDA receptors. Additionally, F B molecules have a similar role in that they promote the clustering of the NMDA receptors, but it was actually subunits that were involved in NMDA receptors that they were involved in, and encouraged clustering. So these two new molecules that we're talking about are these two families are the NERP and the epinephrine are involved in direct inducers of synaptic formation. So now I'm just going to quickly talk about the neurotrophin receptors. Actually put the receptors before the signal events, but we'll talk for a couple slides about the neurotrophins. And so this diagram is just showing the receptors and which binds, which molecules specifically bind to the receptors. But neurotrophins are ligands, and their roles are for null processing for growth and retraction. Also, they have a role in synapse stabilization, elimination, and also cell survival and death. We'll look at that in the next diagram. But this diagram specifically shows the different receptors, the TRKA receptor, which, as you can see, that it binds to the NGF, the nerve growth factor, and it, as the name implies, it influences growth. And then the TRKB receptor that is shown here in the top middle binds to the BDNF and the MT45, I guess is how you say it, and it influences the growth by altering the calcium signaling in the growth cones. So, and also see on TRKC receptors, you can also see the NT3 can with either of these two receptors. And P75 is a low affinity. The P75 receptors different because they all combine to this particular receptor. They bind to all the neurotrophins at a low affinity. So again, like I said, that we'll go to the next diagram that shows more specifically in the diagram. This just pretty much shows the different receptors and which neurotrophins bind to which subgroups. Okay, so here is the actual showing what their role is that they play, and again with the receptors, like we just talked about, and their roles. So cell survival, um, um, dependent on plasticity, and then kidney growth, cell death, and survival. So neurotrophins influence synaptic activity, plasticity, signaling pathways that protect cells from programmed cell death. Um, and that's it. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about neurotrophins. This was a diagrams that were in the book around it in the text. In C, it's showing the image of the demonstrating an neurotrophins signaling. But here at A, these are culture. This is a rendering of a culture dish, and basically the research is showing that they took this culture dish, they put in some type of device to create a few different compartments, and they used what was it? It was a ganglion cell, and inserted these compartments into the dish, and they inserted NGF, which is a nerve growth factor, to observe the growth of the neuron. And what it showed that it demonstrated that as the cell grow through the different compartments, only if there's enough NGF. So as you can see, like in 2, where there's not as much growth, and this was to demonstrate the localization, so the NGF. So as the researchers removed the NGF, it only affected the immediate compartment. So it's showing the localization of how NGF can control growth locally in the neuron. Let's see. And so the images at the bottom were showing in B, they were slides demonstrating, showing the calcium release that was stimulated by the NGF, showing the same thing, how it was NGF plays a localized role in promoting growth. Okay, so growth cones. So what are growth cones? So we've been talking about synaptogenesis and the molecules that are involved in that they direct the growth cones, and which molecules support synaptogenesis, directly support growth, but we haven't really talked about growth cones and what they are and what the parts are. So this diagram shows the different parts of the growth cone, but they specifically, the role that they play is that they explore the extracellular environment, and they determine the direction of the growth for the axon, and they also create an extension. So the very tips of the growth cone is called, as showed in the diagram, is the lamellipodium, and the filopodia is the extension off of each of the lamellipodium. And so they, the way they work is they rapidly extend and disappear throughout their environment to kind of test the environment and explore the environment and see where it needs to go. Once the growth cone has found its target region, it turns this into a presynaptic ending and dendrites. So let's see if there's anything else. And so we're getting ready to talk more. Okay, so the F actin bundle, what we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. So growth cone guide axons in the developing nervous system. So in the text, it has more diagrams on the axon, showing the guide axons. So this diagram is A, It's just showing a blown up version to show you that it's, according to the description, it's the zebrafish embryo, and next to it is showing a blown up version. It's showing the neuron that's crossing over. Next to it, the row of the black and white row of, this is the single neuron that it's showing its descent, and it's showing how the growth cone is leading the axon, basically, and how it's guiding the axon. Diagram B is just showing, it's an image, and the description says a ganglion axon cell. And this image is showing, you can see the green tubulars coming out from it, and at the tips of the red of the microtubulars, there's the red tips, which are, it's showing the growth cones. And you see this is just a rendering of a, to show the changes that occur in the image and shapes of the changes that take place in the growth cone shapes while it's going across the ventral midline. And you can see it goes from C as its original, and then B how it changes and gets wider and changes the shape, and then A where it's, after it crosses the ventral midline, that it starts to return back to its original size. So just show a rendering showing the changes that it goes through. The structure and action of growth cones. So these slides, basically, they're showing how movement occurs within the growth cone. And F-actin is what's being demonstrated here as facilitating the role that it plays in growth cone action movement. So, so it's the primary molecule that's also, we were talking earlier about the different parts of the growth cone, and the primary molecule found, the F-actin, is primarily found in lamellipodia as well as in filopodia, the parts of the growth cone that we were talking about earlier. And so here in image A, it's showing the parts of the growth cone, and the red is demonstrating the F-actin in the growth cone. And B is a 8-hour time lapse that is showing the movement. This is basically showing the distribution of F-actin. And another important thing to understand with F-actin, what's controlling whether it's acting to create the movement, would be it's called polymerization as well as repolarization. And this is what directly causes the F-actin, whether it's going to create movement or not. Even more specifically, it's there are several proteins involved in this that bind, and it affects the translation that lets it know to create movement or not. Okay, signals provided by the embryonic environment. Okay, so these diagrams, as the title says, shows it's basically helping guidance through the environment. And diagram A is introducing the chemotraction and the chemopulsion that's shown at the top and the bottom, the plus and negative signs. So basically, this is based on the ideal that research that's been done to demonstrate that there are these outside signals that are being sent that are not directly in the vicinity but outside of the area, and giving messages basically to the pineal growth cones. So basically, the pineal growth cones out there getting these messages, and basically it's the concept that the target neurons are sending out a message to let the neurons know if it's a good fit or if it's met its target. And then later the theory came along with the chemorepulsion, which is basically the signal that it's not a good fit. And like I said, that pioneer growth cones are used to help to guide in Planck's way. And then the target molecules shown in the diagram, target traffic support, which is in the orange, is guiding the axon and also supporting growth and locating its accurate signal, or the area where it's going to create a connection. So let's see, an example, we have next to us a small diagram showing an example of, for example, the chemoattraction. An example of that is the netrins, which is right next to it. And that is just an example of a molecule that is the chemoattraction. And the role of that, as we talked about earlier, is for growth and guidance. And those are one of the molecules that send out these signals that let the neurons know it's its target. And an example of that chemorepulsion is C. Here we have, this is one of the it's blurry, semaphorins family molecules. And basically these molecules, they bound to the cell surface. And so they're basically preventing axons from extending out to areas and to make a connection where it's not a good fit. Other molecules that are in these that are also chemorepulsions are the SLIT family and the ROBO. Are also play a part in signaling axons away from particular areas. Let's see. So we talked about D here at the top is also, this is just demonstrating, according to the description, it's a growth cone that's described as being a growth cone that's collapsing activity of symphophore signaling. So basically, this would be saying that it's sending a direction. It's actually okay. So it's sending a signal directing the axon away from this particular target. And so it's an example of the chemorepulsion. So it's showing the collapse of the axon, showing that it's sending it away from that particular area. That's not a good connection. Okay, so we haven't talked about, I haven't talked about autism the whole time, really, the whole time that I've been talking. But this is defects in synaptogenesis and autism. So this is just quickly talking about the disorder. And it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. It can occur from 6 to 12 months, but it's typically not diagnosed until at least 4 years old. Which is true of a lot of diagnosis until they're older. But comorbidity, meaning there's multiple diagnoses usually in ESD, which is for autistic spectrum disorder. It's pretty complex. There's a wide range of symptoms as well as a wide range of variants in autism. And and I also read many different problems with it, as well as which there's probably also a wide range of causes. So probably accounting for a lot of the variants. So some of the problems that were talked about is synaptic cloning, and that there was problems with glutamatary basically glutamate synapse formation and function, as well as maintenance problems, as well as disorder of the, since generally speaking, a disorder of dysregulated brain growth and connectivity, basically is a generalized statement about it. I also listed single gene syndromes forms of ASD because, well, single gene disorders are rare anyway. Usually there's many genes involved in diseases or disorders. But here are a few: Fragile X syndrome, Picturis soleralis complex, and Rett syndrome. So basically, these individuals that have these single gene syndrome forms would have comorbidity we were just talking about. So they may have Fragile X syndrome, but also have autism. So there's a connection between these particular genes, and I'm really just mentioning it because much of the data is done with looking at gene expression. And like I said, it's rare to just typically have one gene affecting a problem like this. There's usually many genes involved. So it's pretty rare. So let's go on to looking more at autism and a few studies around autism. Okay, so to continue with autism, I found a few studies that were done on autism, and I'll start with the method used by Maxwell, which is electrophysiological data, which they used EEG. So they found that, so they were specifically looking at the resting gamma oscillations in autism spectrum disorder. And they had a group of 15 boys that had ASD. And also they used TVC, is what they call it, which is typically developing children that they compared them to. And using the EEG measure resting state, brain oscillatory activity, they examined the resting gamma power, and they looked at this across multiple regions of the brain. And they found that the right lateral electrodes resting gamma power was significantly reduced in the autism children in comparisons to the typically developing children. So also looking into the gamma power, it's associated with consciousness, awareness, while individuals in an awake state. So they also gave some tests on social responsive scale with the social responsive scale, and they found a negative correlation between the social responsive scale and the gamma power. So as the social responsiveness went up, the gamma power went down, which makes sense. And so, and like I said, at the finding, they looked at different areas, the regions of the brain, and they found at the right hemisphere, the temporal. So additionally, there's a study that I found on gene expression that looked at, and this was by Leo 2016. Study examined the developmental gene expression changes in autism, and they measured transcription levels in the prefrontal cortex. In these cases, they were anywhere from 2 years old to 6 years old, and they used 63 autistic patients, controls, and then they also used chimpanzees to collect data, and they used using RNA sequencing. And their findings were that several members of the early growth response, the EGR, transcription factor family, was implicated in regulation of unusual development and changes. So it had to do with the development, of course, as the other research supported, and of EGR. Additionally, there's I found a study. It was really a review and it talked about quite a bit of research, but by Abella. And the method that was used was it talks about is IPSCs, which was kind of interesting. I looked into it and never heard of it. It was actually originally discovered in 2006 by Yamanka. I guess he ended up getting the Nobel Peace Prize for that, or a Nobel Prize. He So basically, he discovered in 2006 that another method, it's another technique. He discovered that he could take adult cells and he could convert adult cells into what he called a pluripotent stem cells. So it's his name, the iPSC stands for induced pluripotent stem cells. And so he took the adult cells and figured out he could basically, so he could replace it. And this is why it's so important, because a single cell can replace cells that are lost or damaged and can be used for different therapies or for research, because it can take the place of so many other cells, just by this one cell to be converted. So using this particular newer technique, the research found that there was a decreased synaptic connectivity in autism. This actually, in this particular article, it should be noted that it was looking at schizophrenia and autism because of which is interesting. So the similarities and often in the issues between schizophrenia and autism, and focusing on the IPSC method in looking at the problem. So using this method, they found that there's a decreased synaptic connectivity with fewer synapses, and the synapses were also more immature. So there was problems with the maintenance and the development, particularly. And so those were a few of the different methods that I found on how they looked and considered. But there seemed to be a consensus whether they're looking at it from a genetic perspective or from a electrophysiological data, that there is a problem in during the developmental stages of synaptogenesis.